Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents #Poser by Cambria Hebert, narrated by Shaun Grindell and Jillian Macie. The Bromance, a.k.a. Prologue, #Summertime, make the most of the sunshine, fall is coming soon, #BuzzBoss. Braden. I suck at goodbyes. Yeah, sure, technically this wasn't goodbye. Still felt like it. Still sucked. It was more of a see you later. But how do you say see you later when it's more like see you in a couple of months? Especially when you've seen that person practically every single day since you were in first grade. I'd never say it out loud, at the risk of someone taking away my man card, but Rome and me had a bond. We weren't just friends. We were brothers from another mother. And the part I would never speak out loud? Bromance. We had a bromance, okay? I knew this day was coming. Everyone knew it was coming from the second the ink dried on his contract with the Maryland Knights. Hell, I knew this was coming from the first moment I saw him through a football. Knowing something didn't make it any easier. So many changes lately. Most of them I was doing good with. Some weighed on me more than others, like a lot more. But I never really thought Romeo leaving for training would feel like such a rift in my life. But here I was, feeling all sentimental and shit. It was embarrassing. When this conversation was over, I was going to have to go do something manly, like build something with my bare hands. Or maybe I'd just eat some sprinkles. I pulled up next to the Hellcat and parked. I knew he'd be here. If I were in his position, this is where I'd be too. I walked through the tunnels, past the locker rooms, and into the stands. The field stretched out before me, like the ocean at the beach. The field was immaculate, vibrant green, cut meticulously, and slightly damp from the sprinkler system. Even in the off-season, Alpha U knew where its priorities lay. This football field represented so much more than a sport. To me, it was family. It was life. It was an escape. Rome was standing at the railing, looking out across the field we'd played on more times than I could count. I couldn't believe it was over. We'd played our last game together, and didn't even know it at the time. I was glad, though. I wanted that last game to be exactly as it had been. Nothing but the sport and the fun. Nothing but watching each other's backs and keeping our heads in the game. It made for good memories. I stopped beside him at the railing, silent. We stood there for a while. I knew his thoughts mirrored my own. "I'll never quit you, B," Romeo said eventually, a hint of sarcasm in his tone. It wasn't the first time he said that to me. I swung my head to scoff at him, but the sound never made it out. His words might be a joke, but their meaning wasn't. There was no smirk on his face, no laughter in his eyes. He meant it. "I'll never quit you either, Rome." He lifted his fist from the rail and held it between us. We pounded it out. Pounding it out made everything official. "Seems like I worked my whole life for this. I waited, and I thought it might never come," he said, still gazing out across the field. "But damn, it came fast." "You having second thoughts?" I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye. He shook his head. "It's just hard to walk away, you know?" I did know. For a guy who planned to live his whole life in the moment and just for fun, things got complicated. Things got real. It was hard to live in the moment all the time when you sometimes worried there might not be another one, or that past moments would come back to destroy what was today. I shook off the thought. This wasn't about me. This was about my best friend, my brother, and saying goodbye. "You got rim now," I replied. "You got responsibilities beyond throwing a ball. He nodded and looked down at his hands. I knew he didn't want to leave her. Hell, I'd be the same way, especially after everything they'd been through. Just a couple of weeks away from Ivy, when she went home at the beginning of the summer, had tested my patience. I couldn't imagine leaving for months at a time. But that don't mean you're walking away. This is for her, too. You gotta build a life, bro. And with this job, this opportunity, it's gonna give you both a hella good one. She said the same thing. He half smiled. Didn't surprise me one bit. Rim knew football was in Rome's blood. She'd never stand in the way of that. I clapped him on the back. My sis knows what she's talking about. I need you to do something for me. He looked at me. Not sure how you're gonna feel about it. Dude, I sighed dramatically. I told you. That was a one-time thing. If I go running across campus in my boxes again, I might give the old ladies in the office building heart attacks. I gestured to myself. It takes a strong ticker to handle all this. I don't want to see you in your damn skivvies. He flashed a smile. Though I'd pay to see Ivy's reaction to that shit. Hell, I muttered. I'd never hear the end of it. Romeo's smile grew wider into a shit-eating grin. Rim says Prada is taking quite a liking to you. Damn rat, I spat. But then I smiled. It was hard not to love her when she'd come prancing up to the door in a stupid pink outfit when I walked in. And okay, yeah, maybe I let her sleep with us. Who's whipped now? Romeo laughed. You kiss your mama with that mouth? I cracked. He laughed and pushed off the railing to sit in the row of seats behind us. I dropped down beside him. What do you need? He had to know I'd do it. We had each other's backs like that. I rented a house. A ring of keys appeared in his hand, and he spun them around his finger as he spoke. It's not too far from campus. Nice neighborhood. Fenced-in yard, security system, garage. But you're leaving for training in like a week. He glanced at me. Ah, he was leaving, but Rim wasn't. I laughed. You rented her a house. She's so pissed, isn't she? The grimace on his face said it all. She wasn't too happy. Took some work to get her to come around. I didn't need to know about the kind of work he was talking about. I thought she had to live on campus, as part of a scholarship. He shrugged. I called the dean. That was the Rome I knew. Rules didn't apply to him. If he wanted something, he had the rules bent. It got my respect. You sure her living alone is a good thing, though? Might be better on campus or at your place. She won't stay at my place. Not with Mom right next door, he answered. I asked Ivy to move in with her. My eyes shut up to his. What? I wasn't sure how I felt about that. She never said anything to me. I asked her not to. Told her I wanted to talk to you myself. I started shaking my head. Them two, alone in a house? I thought about what happened to Ivy not that long ago, what she didn't even know. I thought about the way she sometimes still called out in her sleep. I didn't want her alone. I don't like it. Romeo nodded, like he already knew my reaction. Of course, he couldn't possibly know how sick it made me to think of Ivy alone in a house, vulnerable. He didn't know everything. I didn't even tell him. That's where you come in, he said. And then I knew what he was asking. Romeo wanted me to move in with them. He wasn't just renting Rimmel a house. He was renting a place for all of us. You know damn well I can't afford rent on a 3-bedroom house. You probably rented it over in the Palisades, I muttered. A smile played on his lips. It's 4 bedrooms. You totally fucking did, I accused. My mom can't even afford that neighborhood, Rome. This ain't about the money. I laughed. Says the guy with a fat fucking bank account. His eyes narrowed, and the look behind them was hard. You know I ain't about money. We ain't ever been about it either." I scrubbed a hand down my face and cursed. "No, we ain't. I'm not about to start now." "I get it," he said low. "You're a man. You got a lot of pride. I'm not trying to take it from you. But you know full fucking well, if you had the cash for this, you'd do it too. This is the best for them. Ivy can't keep hiding that rat in her dorm. With the new semester, her and Rim'll probably be assigned new roommates. I don't want my girl rooming with some bitch I don't know. And I know you don't want Ivy doing it either. People aren't going to forget too easily about all that shit the #BuzzBoss said about her. I wouldn't be surprised if she reminds everyone of it the first week back. If Missy knows what's good for her, she'll stay the hell away from Ivy," I growled. "They'd never admit it, but they need someone looking out for them. I can't leave here knowing Rim isn't taken care of. I'm asking you to move in with her. I'm asking you to watch out for her. I've got some cash saved up, and I'll be working all summer, all the way up till training camp," I hedged. "Rent's paid for the next year." I shook my head. Of course it fucking was. Romeo always had money. His parents made sure he had the best of shit. But he wasn't the kind of guy who ever seemed to think about it. It just was. He didn't act all ate up, like he was in some expensive, exclusive club. When we were kids, he hung at my place just as much as his. He ate dinner at our kitchen table, and not even once did I see a look of anything but acceptance in his eyes. But that didn't mean I wanted him paying my way. "It's just money, B. We're family," he said, almost like he could read my thoughts. I groaned, and Romeo slapped me on the shoulder. "Thank God. I really thought you would say no." "I'm doing this for the girls," I clarified. "That's why I'm doing it too." I knew it was. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about what the fall semester was going to be like for Ivy, and who she was going to be stuck rooming with. At least this way she could keep the rat, and I knew she'd have somewhere to go, where eyes weren't constantly following her. "I'll pay as much of the utilities as I can." "Rim and Ivy have insisted on pitching in too," he added. "I can't believe she didn't tell me," I muttered, thinking about my girl. "I just talked to her this morning. I asked her not to." "She wanted this too?" I asked. "I wouldn't do it if she had any kind of reservations. We hadn't been together very long, and now we were moving in together. I needed to talk to her, make sure this was what she wanted." Honestly, I think she was relieved. I don't think living on campus was very easy for her at the end of last semester. I knew better than anyone, even better than Ivy herself, why that was. I should have figured it out sooner, I muttered. "Missy had everyone fooled," Romeo said. "Shady bitch," I slurred. "You know it's not just Rim I don't want to leave," Romeo said, his voice candid and low. I looked over at him. Romeo kept me grounded. Life hadn't always been easy for me, but he was always there. Sometimes he kept me together. I guess I understood why he was worried about leaving me. "I'm straight, honestly," I promised. "You talked to him?" He looked me in the eye. He was talking about my father, the abusive man who used to make mine and my mom's life a living hell. I hadn't seen him since he was arrested for almost killing her when I was 10. But then he walked into the diner one Sunday morning, just a few weeks ago. He came right up to the table, like he had every right to my time, like I would just talk to him, accept his presence, as if he hadn't totally fucked me up. "No." My voice was final. "So you aren't going to?" I blew out a breath and stood, pacing a little. Talking about him always made me edgy and frustrated. I don't know. I didn't want to. I could have lived my entire life without seeing him ever again. But I did. And he was dying. It changed things. I might not want to talk to him now. But what about in 5 years? What if I felt different then? My mom talked to me about closure, about dealing with it once and for all. Deep down, I knew closure would probably do a lot for me. But sometimes closure was hard to accept. It was hard to grasp. How did you wrap up something so ugly, all neat and tidy, and put it away? How do you forgive someone for not being the man they should have been? How did I not feel the effects of his abuse? I didn't have 5 years. I might not even have 2. If I thought I would ever want closure from my father, it was something I had to act upon now, before he died. If you decide to call him, if you want me there, I'll be there. Thanks, I said. Feeling a little relieved, he wasn't going to push what he thought I should do onto me. This was something I had to figure out on my own. He stood and stepped up to me. His eyes met mine. I mean it. Just call. I'll come home. Football means a lot to me, but family means more. I let his words sink in. I felt them for a few seconds. I didn't think he'd ever know what they meant to me, and I wasn't ever going to try and explain. I made a sniffing sound. You got a tissue, man? I think I'm going to cry. He shoved me and laughed. Asshole. I caught him off guard with a hug. His laughter died in his throat, and he returned the embrace. We both pulled away and glanced around, like we wanted to make sure no one witnessed our moment. I'm parking the Hellcat in the garage, he said, and palmed the keys that I now knew were to my new place. Wouldn't want it to get dust on it, I cracked. Or are you just hiding it from Rim, hoping she won't get any ideas about driving it while you're in training? Romeo groaned. Much as I worry about her ripping the transmission out, I'd almost be relieved if she drove it, and not that damn bucket of bolts her dad bought her. Since all the drama went down with Rimmel and her family, her dad sold almost everything he owned to go into treatment and satisfy the courts for his part in her mom's death and the extortion of Romeo. And with what little he had left, he bought her a car. It was an old Honda Civic SI model, a white 2-door with a hatchback. It looked like a weird bubble on the road. Like I said, Rome wasn't eaten up about money, but he didn't like his girl driving around in a car that was well over 10 years old. If he had it his way, she'd be driving a Mercedes or some shit. But she wouldn't have it. My sis was stubborn as hell when she wanted to be, so she drove the Honda, and Rome hated it. I've been over that car with a fine-tooth comb. It's safe for her to drive, I assured him. When she drove it home, and we stepped out of the house, Rome about shit his pants. I thought I was going to have to give him CPR to keep him going. I admit I didn't care for the car either, but one of us had to keep chill, and since he was wheezing on his feet, it had to be me. So I kept my trap shut about it, and got under the hood. I replaced all the shit that needed replacing, and Romeo took it for a test drive. And while he was out, he put new tires on it. We didn't tell Rim, and she didn't notice. Women, Romeo muttered. I hear you, bro, I sympathized. We both laughed, and Romeo turned away from the field. Come on. I need help moving my gym out of my place and into the new one. My own private gym? Daggum! I sang. I could get used to this. I plan on being around a lot. Every second I have off, I'm coming home. You're gonna have to share. Turns out it didn't matter I sucked at goodbyes. This wasn't even close to a goodbye. This was a whole new beginning.
To tell or not to tell? aka Part 1. Chapter 1. Hashtag 24 isn't here, but his little hashtag nerd is. Moved her off campus into a love nest. Hashtag favor from the dean. Hashtag I smell special treatment. Hashtag buzzboss. Ivy. Summer wasn't long enough. It never was. I thought maybe as I got older, summer would hold less appeal. But here I was entering my junior year of college, almost a full-blown adult, and I was still suffering from the end of summer blues. Just before finals last semester, summer was a blissful promise. Long, sunny days without the stress of schoolwork, without the burden of getting up far too early in the morning and having to go to bed before it was too late. But most of all, summer had been the promise of long stretches of time absent from all the people who made it hard to breathe. Not the literal type of breathing. I mean, really, pulling air into my lungs was automatic. Except, of course, when I was in Braden's arms. Then I had to remind myself to breathe. I mean, all the people who whispered, the people who talked, the people who were liars posing as friends. I beat myself up for weeks, hell, months, for things I'd done, when all along people were doing worse right behind my back. But summer broke its promise. Those long sunny days went by way too fast. Summer hadn't given me enough time. I still wasn't completely over everything that happened. It was starting to scare me. Why did some places deep down inside me still feel shaky? What if I never fully got over what happened? Even as I thought it, I shook my head. That wasn't an option. I was being ridiculous. Sure, things last semester got pretty shitty, but nothing so terrible it would leave permanent marks. Man up, Nancy. That's what my brother always said. He'd say it to my other brother when they acted like crybabies, and he'd say it to his friends. He even said it to me, even though I was a girl and calling me Nancy wasn't much of an insult. A small smile curled my lips just hearing his words echo in my head. It made me feel stronger, a little less scared. I hated feeling afraid. It made me weak and vulnerable. I hadn't told anyone lately, but I felt that way a lot. Scared. Vulnerable. Weak. I couldn't understand. I wished I could just know why. How could my own feelings be a mystery to me? Wasn't it like some unspoken rule that a girl know what was going on inside her own mind? Things had been going so great. I was happier than I'd ever been. So what was with me? The bell above the front door jingled, and I blew out a breath. I stuffed my disturbed thoughts down deep and mentally stomped on them with the heels I was wearing. I left the boxes in the back and moved around the corner out into the shop and painted a smile on my face. Figures someone would come in this close to closing. I really didn't want to stay late tonight. I wanted to go home and shower and get ready for Braden to get back from training camp. God, I miss him. These last 2 weeks had felt like an eternity. My irritation was short-lived, and the work smile on my lips turned genuine when I saw a familiar set of jean-clad legs step around a rack of long maxi dresses. My heart lurched as his hips swiveled in the most enticing way, but it was the intensity of his stare that drew my eye. It had been a couple months since Braden turned my dorm room into the beach and made our relationship official. But even the passing of many weeks couldn't dull the effect he had on me. It was just as strong right here, in the center of a clothing boutique, than it had been that first night we went up in flames on the beach. "You look hot as hell, Blondie," he growled, as his espresso-colored eyes raked over me from head to toe. I shivered a little, because the way he looked at me made me feel delicious. His white teeth flashed knowingly as he reached for me. I melted against him with a drawn-out sigh. I wrapped one arm around his tight waist, but tucked my other hand between us, pushing my palm flat against his chest. Both his arms locked around me, molding my body even closer against his. My eyes fluttered closed as a feeling of relief washed over me. Have you ever dropped a book in the center of a dusty table? The second it hits, the dust scatters out into the air surrounding the book. Like a big cloud, it puffs out and then disperses, disappearing like there was never any dust at all. That's how Braden made me feel. He was the book, I was the table. And the dust? That was the fear coating my insides. He made it disappear. It was one of the things I loved so much about him. He made me feel safe. Safer than anyone had ever made me feel before. I belonged in his arms, and that would never change. It didn't matter how uncertain anything else became. Of him, I would always be sure. Braden pulled back slightly, enough so he could look down and I could look up. He grunted softly and lowered his head to capture my lips. He kissed me tenderly, but thoroughly. He coaxed me open with his tongue and swept inside to explore every inch. That's how it always was when I kissed Braden. Like every time was the first time. Like every time his lips captured mine, he worked to gain even more access, as if he didn't know he would get it automatically. His kisses took nothing for granted. His tongue never rushed. He owned me with every single touch, but the ownership was earned, never forced. He used the pad of his thumb to softly stroke the underside of my jaw as he kissed me continuously. It was a gentle onslaught of emotion, and soon everything fell away. Soon there was nothing in this entire world but him. When at last he pulled back, it took me a moment to find my way back to reality and open my eyes. When I did, he was watching me. Braden's intensity was something I wasn't sure I'd ever get used to. I sort of hoped I didn't. I loved the slightly tilted feeling it gave me when he stared at me like I was all he saw. "You totally missed me," he surmised arrogantly, the corner of his mouth curved up into a sexy smirk. I rolled my eyes but didn't pull away. I didn't want to. "Meh, I thought about you once in a while." His eyes narrowed into dark slits. "Care to rephrase your answer?" I pretended to consider. Braden growled and caught me around the waist, lifting me off the ground. I squealed and clutched his shirt. He dumped me over his shoulder like I was a sack of lumpy potatoes, and I screeched again. "What are you doing?" I yelled and gripped his waist. "Punishing you." One strong arm clamped around my thighs and held me in place while he smacked my butt with his free hand. "Well, that really isn't a punishment," I suggested. He chuckled as his fingers slid up beneath my skirt and his palm stroked over my butt. I sighed because I really had missed his touch. And even though all the blood was draining to my head and making me feel woozy, I didn't complain. I'd hang here for an hour if he was going to keep touching me. With one last pat to my cheeks, he quickly pulled me around. But instead of standing me on my feet, he sat me on the nearby counter and fit himself between my spread thighs. His hands caressed up the top of my legs and slipped beneath the skirt once more so he could cut my hips. I didn't like being away from you, Blondie. My stomach did a little somersault at his words. I dragged my fingers through the short strands of his dark hair and let my palm slide around the back of his head. Me either. Our lips were like magnets being pulled together. There was no way to stop it. The need was just too strong. One of my legs wound around his waist and pulled him as close as he could get, and we went at each other's lips like we'd never kissed before. It had been a long couple weeks. I knew I'd miss him when he was away at training camp, but I honestly didn't realize how much of an emptiness his absence would leave in my life. Behind the counter, the phone started ringing, and I jumped back, startled. Crap, I was at work. Anyone could walk in the boutique, and the first thing they'd see was me on the checkout counter making out with my boyfriend. Good Lord, my boss could have walked in. I'm at work.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?